Hello guys and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Juca Nery for those who don't know me, and this episode is dedicated to the Katana, Boston Studio on the Katana, everything you need to know. Let's check out. So first things first, in order to install your Boss Katana Tone Studio, you need to know a couple of things. If you're new to this comes in handy. So here on the screen, this is the first thing you need. This is kind of a printer cable, USB. As you can see on the image, it has different ends. Okay, so this goes into the Katana and this goes into your PC or Mac, doesn't matter. Then also you need Adobe Air. I think it's Adobe. All right, so you download it and it's done. Then after that you need to go here, depending on your model. This is for the Katana 100, but for the 50 it's the same thing. So there's a system program, okay? There's the Boston Studio. As you can see here on the screen, every kind of driver for Mac or Windows. You need to download them and install them in order to everything work perfectly, okay? After that, you just launch Boston Studio. But before launching, you have to connect your USB cable, connect the amp, and then after that you launch Boston Studio. Okay, I'm gonna close this for now. Regarding Boston Studio, I have here, open it. One of the things that are probably very basic, but people keep asking me, is how to import tones. Okay, so let's for example, here you click here on Librarian. Let's assume that you have downloaded some tones for me or other website, doesn't matter. Go here into Librarian, all right, and then I'm gonna click here on top, import. So my presets folder, it's here on the desktop, so it's very easy to find. And it says here Katana. For example, I want 70s pack. This is a set list, by the way. A live set or a live set is different from just a preset. A live set contains multiple files, TSL files, from very kinds that you've already written or made, okay, or downloaded. Normally what I do is I create one live set for each patch and then I export them. But I'm going to start to do like this. So if I click here and click open, it says import complete. As you can see inside, you have Foxy, Cocaine, Sweet, and Laura. Okay, I think the names are pretty much self-explanatory, and that's it. Now you have all these tones. For example, if I click here on Foxy from the tone Foxy Lady, I just click it and nothing happened because you need to go to the editor to see the settings, okay? So I'm going to the editor and here are my settings. Now, this is very important. These are the settings for the, as you can see here on the top, for the Foxy tone. But unless I write them in one of those channels you have at your disposal, and you have 8 channels, the panel mode doesn't count, okay? I need to write it first and then tweak it to my taste. So I'm gonna write it, click write, choose one of the slots. You have the A, channel 1, 2, 3, 4, and then B, channel 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm gonna put it here on channel 1. I don't mind overriding my settings because I'm doing this all the time, right? So, okay, it's writing on channel 1. Okay, now it's there, right? It's there, not also there, not just there, but also on your Katana. It's very easy to understand. Now, the first step that you have here is effects, all right? And this shows you the effects that are engaged at the moment on your preset. So I have in booster, as you can see, the chain is booster, modulation, delay, effects, and then you have here modes for reverb, delay, and other reverb, all right? So it's pretty simple. I've got engaged a muff fuzz, and you can drop down this menu and select the pedals from here for each of one of these categories, okay? But we're not going to do that way. So you can see by the lights that I've engaged a muff fuzz, I've engaged graphic EQ on the FX, and the reverb. So these are my effects that are already engaged. Then next to the effects, you have the chain. So the chain, you have 3 chains on Boss Tone Studio. Chain 1, and it's self-explanatory. You can see here on this diagram: guitar, amplifier, equalizer, then booster, effects, reverb, and speaker. So they're sort of, these effects are on the loop effects of the chain. On the chain 2, which is one I mostly use because I like to have my booster in front of the amp. Then it comes the equalizer, effects, and reverb, and speaker. And chain 3 puts the delay in front of the amp. So basically I use this one, chain number 2. Then from left to right comes booster. Okay, in this case I have the muff fuzz selected. There's a bunch of not presets, of pedals that you can select here. Okay, for example, I'm going to choose mid boost instead of the one that I had. And the knobs are pretty much the same. You have drive, tone, bottom, and level. Down here you have solo level, and direct mix. Let's leave that for another part because you're not going to need it, okay? At least for the basic tones you are writing and developing in your Boss Tone Studio. So drive, tone, bottom, and effect level. Pretty simple, and every time you mess around one of these knobs, you can see on the right in red, you can see the numbers moving. It's very easy to understand this. Then you have modulation, and then the name says, if you click here in the chorus, you have flanger, phaser, univibe, tremolo, a lot of stuff you can use here. Auto wah, compressor, limiter, a lot of stuff. I've got here a chorus that is not engaged. You can see here gray out button saying off. Then it comes the delay, your main delay, okay, because there are 2 delays. You can configure this to 2 delays and engage the second delay. Okay, we'll see a little bit later. And it's not engaged as well. And just like the other, you have a lot of delays to choose from: digital, analog, tape, echo, reverse, modulate, and the ST3000, which is one of my favorite ones. Also, modulate is very cool because it gives it a little bit of chorus on these knobs below the other ones, on delay, feedback, high cut, effect level, direct mix. Then you have modulation rate and the depth, okay? Very easy to understand. Next you have effects. And effects, you can choose also a lot of stuff, as you guys can see here on the drop down menu. So basically all these slots, they repeat themselves in the sense that on modulation you're gonna find a lot of things that you'll find also in effects, okay? That's pretty much it. Then you have the delay too. We'll talk about that and how to engage it. Similar controls, similar drop down menu, and similar delays. Main reverb, which is engaged, as you can see this light telling on, it's red, and you have your knobs to control your reverb and different types of reverb as plate, room, alt, spring, modulate. Okay, very easy. After that it comes the interesting part for me in terms of tone shaping. So you got your parametric EQ that you can change to a graphic EQ, the new one GA10, that has a lot of bands, and you can do pretty much the sound you want from this. There are differences between the parametric EQ, very important, and between the parametric EQ and the GA10 EQ. And I'm going to show you one of them. For example, this frequency here, 250, if I boost the frequency, I'm just, in this kind of EQ, you just boost and cut. And I don't know if you guys are aware that there's a curve to the EQ, okay? And it can be like this if you boost it, or it can be like this if you cut it. But you never know how narrow or wide is the curve, okay? In this case, you really don't know. So that's why I usually start with the parametric EQ, because I can determine if the cut is going to be wide or narrow. I hope I'm making some sense. So for example, the same frequency, 250, going back to the parametric, down here, low mid gain frequency, and I'm going to choose around 250. Here it is. All right, now I have here my control like just a GE10 graphic EQ. Cut it or boost it, but next to low mid frequency comes the low mid Q. If the knob is totally on the left, you're going to have a broader frequency, which is great for boosts. And if you want to go, you know, take a little bit just of the sound and narrow your frequency, you just put this to the totally to the right. Of course, there are in-between points. You don't have a visualizer for this, but what happens is the curve is wide, and as you go to the right, it starts to be narrow. Okay, so for example, I'm going to give you an example here on the high mid frequency. I'm going to choose 4 kilohertz, and this is one of the frequencies that I normally cut in metal tones. So what I'm going to do is very simple. I'm going to cut it here first where it says I mid gain. I'm going to cut it like about minus, let's go nuts, minus 10. But I don't want a broad EQ because it's going to catch all over the spectrum. Frequency is going to catch a lot of frequencies that I want to. I just want that particular frequency, so I'm going to narrow my EQ to the max. So it's going to be like this on 4K. Okay, hope you guys understand that. It's very simple. Next, you have your noise suppressor with threshold and release. So basically, you determine how much of the noise suppressor you want. If you want to be to have a fast release or slow release, meaning this has to do with the sustain from the notes, and it's very important the way the threshold, the noise gate closes the tone. If you have a fast release, it will probably close much faster than a slower release, so probably a slower release is better for the note sustaining. And the threshold is just the control that you set. If you set it too high, it might be handy for some kind of metal tones, high gain tones, but for the most part, normally I use it around 20 to 30 max, and sometimes I'll leave it completely down or I'll just turn it off here. Okay, because on clean sounds, you really don't need this. After that comes send and return, and this is about your loop effects on the Katana. So if you're using external pedals, you can turn this on or off, and also comes in handy if you want to connect, say, a pedal board like GT1000 that I have here. Instead of connecting in the front, you connect it on the return, because it definitely sounds better. Okay, it bypasses the preamp, so you leave it just a power amp, and it doesn't color the sound that much. Then you have levels for return and send, and the mode can be parallel, also series, and the position. Okay, after that you have this enormous panel that is the latest version from Boston Studio, where you can assign, if you have a suppression pedal, you can assign different parameters, or even on your presets, or even on your buttons on the amp, you can assign different things to happen. Before that, you were stuck, like, say, to change just the type of distortion, but not the drive. Right now you can change various parameters just on the amp, assigning these parts. Okay, a little bit confusing at first because there's a bunch of information here, but it's not that hard. Now when it comes to the amp, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 amps. You got acoustic amp, which is great to connect an acoustic guitar because it sounds really good. You got a clean amp. Bear in mind that in my perspective, this is not the modeling, sort of a modeling amp, because some people say it's a modeling amp, but the names of the sounds are not just like your regular modeler unit that says something like Recti or something like that, which obviously is a Mesa Boogie. Instead, here you have clean, crunch, lead, and brown. Seems like an amp with different channels, so to speak, instead of different amps. Okay, but they do react differently, like each and every one of them. And for brown channel suggested maybe you're on a Marshall or something like that. And although it might resemble, I like to think of the Boss Katana of having it its own tone, its own voice, and I believe this is accurate. But of course, and this is the most fun part of the Boss Katana, you can do whatever you want with it in terms of modeling other amps, and that's what I do. That's my job. When I want to model, let's say, a Fender Reverb or a Marshall, I go here and start dialing the knobs until I'm happy with the sound, and it takes a lot of time because I have to normally listen to every kind of clip of that particular amp and then compare with the sound that I have using my DAW, Logic or Pro Tools, using a simple EQ, equalizer, where I can see the frequencies moving, and then I'm trying to match those frequencies here, because it's a little bit hard because you don't have that kind of digital visualization on the BTS, Boston Studio. BTS stands for Boston Studio. And so you have to go a little bit by here and trial and error, so sometimes it takes a lot of time. Having said that, for example, in the crunch channel, then you have gain. The controls you have after the amp are all the same. So you have the gain knob, you have volume, you have your basic EQ, bass, middle, and treble, all right? And then you have the section about the effects. And lastly, but not least, at least on the amp physically, you have the presence knob on the 100 watt, which is really cool. I think you guys have access to this knob on the 50 via the BTS. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's pretty much it. Now, when it comes to these three knobs, the first knob can engage two different things: the booster, which is right here, and by here you can see that I'm controlling the drive. But if I go into this assign page, I might say that this knob, I don't want this knob to control the drive, but to control different distortions, for example, or to control inside the booster the tone or the bottom end or the effect level. This is the fun part of the assignment, okay? And but for now, basically as it comes, it's just controlling the drive. So you see this knob moving up and down, and you see also the drive here down moving up and down accordingly. After that, if you pass that, you enter on modulation. As you can see, the light went from red to green. Then you come to the tab modulation. From here you select the effect that you want. Let's say with the chorus, and once again this knob is just controlling right now the low rate. Okay, as you guys can see, I'm controlling not just the low rate but the high rate frequency of the chorus, which basically I think this comes stock like this. But like I said before, you can assign this to control the low depth, low level, direct mix, whatever it's inside this pedal knobs. That's where their assignment part is comes very in handy. Okay, so basically this is it. I'm going to turn this down for now, it's totally off. Next you have delay and effects. Okay, I'm going to start with delay. So if I engage here my delay, I'm going to delay where it says delay here. I decide this delay, and if I increase this knob, you'll see that it's moving two things at the same time. Probably because I have that assigned. It's moving the effect level and also the feedback. After delay you have effects, and this is where you lose the delay, almost. And in effects you have the effects tab, and here basically you have a lot of things like chorus, flanger. Once again, some of the effects are repeated on this one. You don't have a delay, but you have this DC30 that can be a chorus, or if you click here, it can be an echo. So pretty much another delay. What I like to use this part for is a graphic EQ. Let me try to find it here. And there it is. If I move down this knob up and down, the frequencies move in a random fashion. Okay, so normally what I do is put everything at 0 and start sculpting my sound from here. Like if I want to bump on 250, if I wanted to cut some 500 Hertz, if I want to cut the fizziness of the amp. Talking about the fizziness, let me show you something really cool, because sometimes you don't need to touch this parameter. And So this is pretty much covered. And lastly, you have your reverb. Now, bear in mind that right now we have lost your delay. But if you come here to effects, on this drop-down menu, these are the types of reverb that are engaged. Right now, the reverb engaged, it's a room. Okay. On the effects, if it was another type of reverb, would appear here. I click a drop-down menu, and I can put it to delay. I can put it to reverb or delay plus reverb. This way, we engage delay 2. Okay, delay 2 is now engaged. And now if I mess with my knob, I have to mess with my knob a little bit, touch it, so it engages. Now I have control over 2 parameters in one knob. So I do my reverb, like imagine it's done, 3 milliseconds of reverb, and now I'm going to my delay 2, and I control my time, my feedback, I cut, effect level, and direct mix. And I also can control or assign different types of, like a tape echo, for example. Now, this is really cool because it gives you the opportunity to use, if you want 2 delays, okay? But as you move on this knob for the FX, you lose the first delay, so you can assign the second delay, and you don't lose any delay. If that makes sense, I hope so. And if you record via USB, you have stereo effects. Now, like reverb and delay, but I don't believe it's possible to make that ping pong effect with these 2 delays, because I've tried like to put 300 milliseconds on one delay and 600 on the other, like the double, and try to ping pong it, but I think it comes in stereo in both speakers at the same time, not making the ping pong. Something that should be addressed in future revisions, in my opinion. Okay, now going back to the EQ, the parametric EQ, especially the parametric EQ, you got here a second page. And this is very important for the behavior and the sound, overall sound of your amp. Because that's here where lots of people that really don't understand the Katana talk about that digital fizziness that is somehow part of all amp themes, amp modelers and stuff like that. Although I must admit that nowadays they are getting very, very good every day with every constant update from other brands. I would say that on an album, if you record with amp themes, nobody is going to notice, okay? If you're playing for yourself, it's up to you if you feel how it responds, if you like how it responds, if it acts like a real tube amp or if it doesn't. For me, I have a Marshall Origin 20C over there. It's a totally tube amp, and it sounds fantastic. But I have my Katana, and I'm talking about the clean channel, by the way. I have Katana, I have my Boss Nextone Artist, also the GT1000, and on the clean side of things, I can tell you, it's not very easy. It's not easy at all to tell the difference in terms of dynamics and tone, and that's the important part. Of course, I know tube aficionados will say this will never sound like a tube amp, and maybe they're right in the sense that this is not a tube amp, but I think it stays on the same level. And sometimes if you have a tube amp, but if you can't dial a good tone, it's doing nothing for your sound. So that's pretty much it. And what I like to do here, it's a low cut around 63 Hz or more, depending on the sounds, because that's the low end that you don't need on the amp, especially if you're recording or playing live. You have to leave space for the bass and the kick drum, and then the most important thing is the high cut. If you leave it flat, you're gonna have like a lot of fizziness, but if you leave it like around 5 kilohertz, that's gone. And that's where most of tube amps that I've seen that on graphic EQs just cut, you know, they're totally cut, and that's it. So also, and last but not least, a system where you can change different kinds of air fill, rec, live, and blend. The blend blends the rec and live mode. Live mode, I think, is great for those more vintage tones, at least when recording. Then you have cabinet resonance, vintage, modern, and deep. That comes with the artist, Katana artist, outside these controls on the amp itself. There's a lot of stuff here on the side. Just let you know, last but not least, I've told this before, on the USB, if you want to have the max level out, because USB is a little bit weak, you put this effect out level maxed out like on 200%. And then on your DAW, you just use like a gain plugin and say there like, put it on 10 decibels or something like that, so you can make up for the loss of volume. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I think it's a very long video, and I can see it's almost 30 minutes, but I hope you guys really take notes of everything, and if you have any question or something you want to ask me, just drop a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that bell notification button, and stay updated for new content. Cheers!